This month we've been on the topic of attention. Attention. And today my topic is stance or trance? Stance or trance? The human psyche is such that whatever it is that we focus our attention on long enough, our attention becomes riveted there and we become hypnotized by it. We literally become under the spell of its suggestions. You can take something like movies, where we will pay psychic coin to go get scared, or to go get angry, or whatever that is. And there's this collective agreement that while our eyes are riveted on that screen, whether it's at home, at the movies, or someplace else, we're in that drama. We're really believing it. We're crying, we're laughing, we're getting mad, we're getting scared, and there's nothing going on. It's not even there. It's just images. It's just lights that are flickering on a screen, you know, different dots and all that densities, and we're right there. With all of our emotion, just right there, right there. Go get yourself some popcorn. Just move around, flick on the light, something to break the hypnotic trance. That's how we do life. So that whatever it is that's going on throughout the day, whatever that is, we are as riveted as though we're at the movies. And in some respects, it ain't any deeper than what's going on at the movies. It's our own projections on the screen of life, over and over and over again. And we have the opportunity at any point in time to break that suggestion. That idea, the hypnotic suggestion, it's really important that we understand that. If I had somebody on this stage and I hypnotized them, which wouldn't take that long to do, actually, because the way the focus of attention goes, and I said, go get a mop and clean up that spill. Okay? And they go get a mop and they just be mopping. Okay? No water, no spill, no mop, and just mopping. That's how we are in life. We fall spell under the suggestion of whatever that is that rivets our attention enough. I think I mentioned last week or the week before how we get road trance. That if you're driving on the highway, you know, after a while, if you don't keep moving your eyes around, you just fall asleep. Just get under the drone of it. Or if you take your attention off for a moment, this is why it's so dangerous to text and drive or to be doing too many other things. Because we have this massive piece of machinery that has gone hundreds of feet just within some split seconds of while we've turned our attention away. Or you look to the side, and before you know it, your car is going off to the side. Because you are going to follow your attention. Okay? Your attention's not following you. You are following your attention. Be careful what you go to sleep on. Your mind processes 14 times more whatever is impressed upon it the last 45 minutes before you go to sleep. Which is why you're more likely to have a nightmare if you see a scary movie at night than if you see it during the day. Okay? You don't want to go to bed mad. You don't want to go to bed angry. You don't want to go to bed anxious. Many of us think of prayers and affirmation as a morning activity. And yes, that's a very good thing to do in the morning, and you want to do it at night. You want to prep your mind. That is prime time. When you are asleep and you're out of that beta wave and you're going down to some of the delta and gamma and some of those other wavelengths, you're open. You're receptive. You can see things there. You can figure things out there. You're not fighting. You're open. I remember I used to be so mad. Oh, boy, was I mad. In the early years when I was first getting those spirit letters, because I would be awakened 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I'd be up for the next couple hours getting these spirit letters, and particularly pissed if the letter was for somebody else. Go wake them up. They don't even want this letter. And they're going to be mad at me for giving it. Why are you waking me up? And what I was told was so plain. It said, only when I was asleep was I receptive. That only when I was asleep I wasn't fighting. It said, if you learn how to rest awake, I can get through to you then. You don't have to be asleep to be at a place of spiritual rest, spiritual availability. So, it took me a while, but I got it. In a different kind of rhythm, where I don't have to be awakened in the middle of the night, because I can be open. I can be open at some other time. I called it stance or trance, because always with our attention, we're doing one thing or another. We're either being hypnotized by what is in front of us, or we are being conscious in some kind of way of how we are using our attention. We develop habits. We're creatures of habit. And the way that you memorize anything is because we have repeated it to ourselves enough. I say, be an equal opportunity thinker. We've conditioned ourselves to the naysay, the doubt, the fear, the whatever. It's so interesting. We could be told 13 wonderful things about something that we've done, and most of us will hang on to the one negative comment. We don't remember the other 12. But that one is what we will focus on. And this is where we have to flip the switch. This is a lot of what's behind the work that Brother Ishmael Tete will bring to us quite often in some of his more fundamental workshops, where he'll have us recalling so that we can bring back to conscious memory those times when we have been loving, when we have been creative, when we have been tuned in with our power, so that when we think of ourselves or even call our names, that's what comes to mind first. That's what comes to mind first. We tend to think on this spiritual journey that there are many things for us to do. And we're always looking for what is that I need to do in order to change, to heal, to transform. We're a very action-oriented society. Now, there are many sacred texts out there, and I respect them all, and I read quite a few. The one that I'm most steeped in is the Holy Bible, the Holy Scriptures, because I grew up very Pentecostal, as I've said from time to time. So that book I've read a lot, and I've had read to me, quite a bit. And Jesus is my main man. He's my main man. He's my go-to guy. So that when I'm thinking through life, that sort of cliche, what would Jesus do? I really go there. I really go there. And for me, it's more a question of, if I really knew that I was one with God, what would I do? It's not so much about a personality, a human personality, as it is that Christ is a state of consciousness. It's an enlightened state of consciousness and connection. So when I ask myself that question, it's the question of, if I weren't stuck, because there are at least two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. So if I'm willing to unleash my side, what would I see? That was one thing that really struck me very hard in my spirit letters. When it's saying, I don't keep anything from you. Anything that I know, you can know, if you're willing to see through my eyes. Catch that. If you're willing to see through my eyes. We go to God and we go with our prayers with all of these questions and wanting God to see through our eyes, to answer our questions from our perspective. What's wrong with this? When is this thing going to happen? You know, talk to me within my time-space continuum that doesn't even exist. You know, what's next? As though something's linear, as opposed to deeper. Deeper ain't on your GPS system. We're always trying to go from here to there. But you know, it's like we have these constructs, and we're wanting for this, the Holy Spirit, God, whatever you call it, to answer us through our constructs. And they say, no, if we are willing to release those and literally see through the eyes of God, like, what does God see here? What does God see in this circumstance and in this condition? If there's truly a win-win, if there truly is a situation where everybody is equal, if there's truly a situation where nothing is ever wasted, if there truly is a situation where absolutely everything is working together for some kind of good, what would that look like? See, that's taking a stance. To take a stance to see through divine order, to take a stance to see through right action, means a release of our own perspectives. Too many of us equate our identity with our perspective. I'm me by what I think. My opinions is what makes me. My emotions are what make me. My past interpretation, which creates my experience, is what makes me. And part of our challenge here is to not have our attention on the us that we think that we are. There's a you don't know yet. There's a you haven't even discovered yet. There's a you that's full of power, that's full of potential. A you that is tapped into the absolute divine. A you that can discover that everything you are looking for, you are looking with. The only thing that ever needs to be healed is just a sense of separation. It's just a sense. I don't care whether it is the most global problem that we've experienced in the world or whether it's the most minute thing happening in your household. It is just a sense of separation. That's all that it is. And once we realize that it is us, there's nothing missing. There's nothing missing. There's nothing missing. We are perfect, whole, and complete. We will never know this as a nation until we know it individually. Our global politics, the lack of sustainability, the lack of social justice is just a reflection of where we live in individual consciousness. And nothing's going to change globally until it changes within us. Stance or trance? When people were always asking Jesus, well, what is it that they needed to be doing? And his answer was always the same. Refocus your attention. That's what he would always say. He never gave a lot of prescription for ritual. Do this thing, do that thing. He never made people convert to Judaism or to anything else. He didn't talk a lot about people's behavior only within the standpoint that their behavior reinforced some false consciousness that they shouldn't have. But never was it about if you do this thing, that's all you've got to do. It was always a shift of attention. Whether it was about judgment. Why are you worried about the splinter in your brother's eye when you got a beam in your own? Why are you doing that? Why are you coming to church, giving all your offerings and whatnot, and you've got malice in your heart? Go home. Heal with your brother. Do that. He says if you're in an argument with somebody and you're fighting with them, in Jesus' day, people would have to go a distance to get to the judge. And the complaining parties would have to travel together, sometimes 2 or 3 days, to get to the judge. Now, while they're traveling together, needless to say, they've got to depend on each other. Because there's bandits out there and there's all kinds of things that are out there. And once they get away from all of the influences of all of the other people who are there bothering them and whatnot, they work it out. A lot of times they work it out. He said, agree quickly with thine adversary. That's what that phrase means. While you're on your way. Because if you don't, what you're going to suffer is even more. That what you're going to pay, but how the judge is going to make you pay, isn't even worth it. This agree quickly with thine adversary. Refocus your attention. Refocus your attention. Refocus your attention. Whether it was turn the other cheek, which we totally misunderstand, but still, it's a refocus your attention. Refocus. Don't worry about retribution and revenge. Pray for your enemies. Refocus. Pray for your enemies. Bless your enemies. Love your enemies. See, now we know most of the time when we hear people quote Jesus, they're talking about love your neighbor. Everybody knows to love your neighbor. But nobody mentions love your enemy. And quite frankly, I don't know how we as this so-called quote-unquote Christian nation, for those of us who believe that we are such a Christian nation, can justify so much war. I don't get it. Who did Jesus tell you to go kill? serial kill. It's a refocus of the attention. And what happens when you refocus the attention, you find your power. When you refocus your attention, you're able to find the truth. When you refocus your attention, you're able to get back into a sense of alignment with the divine. We recalibrate. Your attention is the single most powerful asset you have. I'm going to say that again. Your attention is the single greatest asset that you have. It is what pays you dividends. Your attention. And we have the power to swing it any way we want to swing it. I was telling the story a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember if I told it in church or not, but I for sure told it at a group that I was presenting to. And it was a bunch of women, a group of women who would come together about women's empowerment and business things. And I don't even remember exactly what possessed me to tell this story. And it's very similar, actually, to the story. What's the guy's name, the play that you did, the guy that was innocent? Gregory Bright. So Charles has a show that he does, the story of a guy named Gregory Bright, who had been imprisoned in Angola, Louisiana, for 27 and a half years, and he was innocent. I've had conversations with a guy in the same situation. So I was at Pleasant Valley State Prison, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And this guy comes up to me and he says that he has seen me there for maybe about 5 years, but had never gotten the nerve to just come up and talk to me. Looked like he's probably about my age, black guy. And he explained to me that he was getting out in 2 weeks. I said, oh, really? Good for you. He said, yes. They've just discovered I'm innocent. And what I know from the prison system is that when people go in, they're usually young. And that if this guy's my age, he's been there a while. Particularly males that age 16 to 25. That's it. It's the stuff that happens in that time period that usually has them in there. So I took a deep breath and I said, how long have you been locked up? He said, 26 years. And I took a deep breath and I said, you are been locked up for 26 years and you're innocent? And he said, yes, ma'am. And then he just proceeded to explain that a couple of weeks before, another guy had a parole hearing. And during his parole hearing, he also has been locked up for 26 years. During his parole hearing, he happened to mention this guy. And that this guy went down, but that he had been innocent. The people on the other guy's parole hearing went and investigated. It was in the file all along. When they went to the file, it was so clear that this man was innocent. It wasn't his parole board. Catch this. It was not his parole board. These other people had absolutely no obligation to look up anything. About a month after this conversation, ring, he calls me here. He's maybe 7, 8 blocks max from where I grew up. We're in the same neighborhood. And he's telling me what's happening, and he's reunited with his family, and his cousins got him this construction job and all this stuff. And I'm like really happy for him. So after about the third call, I said, you know, I don't want to like get all up in your business, but aren't you like mad? You know? Maybe, you know, inquiring minds want to know. And I will never forget this as long as I live. I had told this story a couple of weeks ago as an example of forgiveness like I had never seen. So as I'm asking him, aren't you mad a little bit? He laughed at me. Not with me. You know, it is rare that I get laughed at like that. That kind of, you know, you must be crazy kind of laughing at you. And I will never forget that boy. He just laughed. He laughed. I could just hear the laughter. He was like, oh, Reverend. I have been as mad as I ever intend to be. Life is too sweet. I'm free. Mad? I ain't got time to be mad. Somewhere the attention shifted. Can you feel that? Somewhere the attention shifted from the injustice of it all to this quiet knowing. That's forgiveness. That's forgiveness. That's no longer being under the trance of it. And I have learned more about attention from lifers. I have learned more about attention because that's all they got. That's the only thing in the world they can control. And explaining to me how the rest of us live in prison. Because we haven't learned that we can control our attention. Just let that sink for a moment. We control our attention. Your experience is not what happens to you. Your experience is how you interpret what happens to you. Your experience is not what happens to you. Your experience is how you name it, how you label it. That's your experience. That's your experience. Half of therapy is just renaming. Half of therapy is just going back and seeing through fresh new eyes that can liberate. Will you take a stance for who you are? Will you take a stance for your power, for your truth, your beauty, your joy, your creativity, all of the things that are trying to come through you? Because it is you. It's who we are. We don't have to be hypnotized by the stuff of the world. We don't have to live in fear of the economy or this thing or that thing. We don't have to be in fear. Because we are one with a majority. One with God is a majority. And I'm going to leave you on this note, because this, to me, is the most exciting thing. This is the reason why I'm here. This is the reason for my purpose, is that something happens beyond the individual when you synchronize energy, and your attention is energy. Your attention is energy, because your attention creates. There's a synergy that happens. Synchronized energy is how I think of synergy. That when you get multiple people, multiple places of attention, standing in agreement, there's a power there. That's the revolution. See, the revolution is when you have enough people who are willing to break out of the trance of the not enoughness, the trance of all the ways that it's been before. I don't care how long you've been oppressed. I don't care how long you've been down. When enough people stand up, it's over. I don't care. When enough people stand up and say enough is enough, it's over. The Berlin Wall came down. Apartheid came down. It can all come down. If we're willing to take a stand. In this election year, let's not get amnesia. It's so not about personalities. It's about principle and a vision of a just world, a sustainable world, a truly free world. Will you stand in that? Yes. Otherwise, we're being bamboozled by the news.